This is Blakus. Welcome to my walkthrough behind the scenes on my composition SkyPassage. I wrote this track a while ago to demonstrate Berlin strings by Orchestral tools, which is quickly becoming my main string library. I'll just play through the piece just in case you haven't heard it before, then I'll start breaking it up and go through which libraries I used to create it, what each section sounds like in isolation, and anything else that pops into my head. Alright, let's do it. Alright, that's it. You probably saw me fix up a bit of MIDI garbage there that I should have fixed up a long time ago. So that's the track. If you're really familiar with the track, you might recognize the mix sounds a bit different. That's because this isn't mastered, it's just straight out of my DAW. And also, I've actually used a slightly different microphone mix in Berlin strings in what you're hearing now to what I've actually published around the place on SoundCloud and YouTube, etc. The mics I'm using on Berlin strings are actually they're close mics and surround mics, pretty much at nearly default levels. I like the tree mics. I just don't know why. I'm really obsessed with the surround mic sound in Berlin strings, and then the close mics just give it a nice presence. In the mixes I've got around the place, I actually just use surround mics without close, so a lot of people have commented that it lacks definition, but that's purely my decision, not the library's weakness. So let's go through, since this was all about Berlin strings, let's start with Berlin strings. It's all purely, everything is from the library. I haven't used any other libraries here. I just wanted to test it out. I tried to do a few smooth flowing things as well as staccatos and a few pizzas and even trills and a few other things, little bits of runs, just to try and really put the library to the test. So I might just play through so you can hear in isolation a little bit of each instrument. Here's some first Violin Legato. That's pretty cool. What I like about it is you would have heard that attack. Usually in other libraries, I tend to have to layer separate staccatos and things like that over the top of legatos to actually get that bite. But Berlin Strings has been programmed very efficiently, and it enables you to just, on high velocities, have a great attack on a standard legato patch, which is just awesome. And I've used that everywhere in this piece, and it doesn't sound nasty like some other attacks can in other libraries where it's just an obvious staccato layered. This has a real nice attack that blends into the sustain afterwards perfectly, and it's at all dynamics too, so it's really great. Another good thing about this library too actually is if you play with a low velocity at the start of a note, it'll actually play a nice smooth swell into the note as well. Not just a dynamic fade, but a real dynamic swell from the players. Which is just, having that attack control is priceless, because on the fly you can sculpt so much more, and the beginning of the notes are often a weakness in nearly every string library that I've played. You're very limited to the way that the musicians played it unless you start doing staccato overlays and other kinds of tricks. Let me just play you a bit of second violins. Really got to stop pushing that solo button when I'm talking. So I'm kind of abusing the upper layer here, and I'll admit I'm not as careful in my programming of the second violins because they're not quite as forward as the firsts, and they just kind of give it a lot of depth and to the firsts more than anything. Let's play some violas. So that's just a bit of staccatos, or spiccatos actually. Nothing too exciting there at the beginning at least. Where's some viola legato? You'll see, like, my volume curves, my velocity curves, no, my CC1 curves. The library responds really well to the curves, and it sounds really natural. It's not any volume pumping or anything like that. The crossfades are really nice and smooth, and it allows you to kind of get a lot of expression. I'm trying not to be like a fanboy of this library, but I really like it. It's fantastic. Let me just go down to the cellos, and then I'll make a comment on my opinions about the different sections. So again, that's just surround mics and close mics. I haven't used any trees, which the tree mics do sound great too. But like I said, I don't know why, but I really like this combination. So there's a lot of flexibility there. Okay, as far as playability and sound and everything goes, this is pretty much true across all libraries, and it's kind of true for Berlin Strings as well. Violin 1s, for some reason, are the most playable and the best sounding. They're fantastic. Violin 2s are pretty close, but not quite. Violas are a little bit less playable. Again, cellos even more less playable. But in saying that, the cellos are still fine. I can get everything that I want out of them. But I thought it was just an observation that I would make. It seems to be a characteristic of every string library I've actually played. So it's not really a negative, but it's just an observation. Let's play some strings all together just so you can hear it. the expression and passion in those strings. Something amazing about it. Orchestral Tools have done a great job. I don't want to spend the whole video talking about Berlin strings, but that's what the song was about. The basses sound great. The only way I can really describe it to people who are thinking or are on the fence of buying it is, I don't know, it's kind of got the playability of Lass almost. Lass, I don't know if you know LA scoring strings. That's one of the most playable libraries that I have. It responds instantly to whatever you do. Berlin strings is very close, and as far as the sound goes, it's right up there with the sound quality of Hollywood strings, in my opinion, as well. There's a few little inconsistencies with patch volumes, which they're still sorting out at Orchestral Tools, but it's very minor things and it's easy to just adjust it yourself anyway. Whereas Hollywood strings tends to be totally balanced out of the box straight away. But yeah, I love it. All right, so let's move on a little bit. I don't want to spend too much more on that. This is a bit of Orchestral Tools fest because I'm using Berlin woodwinds for all of the woods in this as well. I tend to write not so much for more than one woodwind at a time. Like, for example, I don't really write A2 or 2 or 3 flutes at a time. I like just, especially in the sampling world, the sound of a solo flute just sounds beautiful with an orchestra. So I kind of boosted the level of the winds a little bit to compensate for that. But I really like the sound of a solo wind. I might just play this last part here of the track with the wood soloed. You can hear just how I've orchestrated it, and there's a few trills in there that I really like that Berlin Tools, wow, Orchestral Tools winds do really well, Berlin woods. Not just trills between half tones and tones, but some wider intervals as well, which sound kind of texturally really nice. So I'm really impressed with that too. That gives you an idea of what it sounds like. I did think of one thing back here in the strings that I just was reminded of. You'll notice that these slow, kind of almost like rolling in the ocean movements, swirls in the strings. I've chosen not to use dynamic bowings, Adagio kind of by 8DO. They kind of do a really nice job of that. Well, Berlin Strings has got those too, but I thought rather than using those, I would try and just use the standard legato patches with some volume swirls to try and get it. And I thought it did a pretty good job. It didn't really sound too static to me, but you could probably get an even better sound out of it if you did decide to use the dynamic bowings in it. Just in case you're not sure what I'm talking about, here it is. Yeah. Alright, brass. I've been converted since my last videos. I've just now pretty much used Hollywood brass plus a few little things I've kind of whipped together from other samples, and I'll just solo some of the brass parts. I'll warn you, it doesn't sound as impressive in isolation as what I think it does in context, but I mean, hey, it's samples, what can you do? So yeah, I'm just using the samples out of the box. The only reverb I'm applying is a bit of B2. a haul from 2C Audio B2. That's the only trickery going on here. I don't have any panning or anything like that. And even EQ is very limited as well. Nothing extraordinary. Let's go to a different brass part. The secret to brass really is in how you sculpt the CCs. Nothing worse than a long brass note with a static CC. There needs to be some real movement in there. And yeah, let's hear the next little brass section. Actually, that was just Hollywood brass, but I've actually supplemented it with a bit of other fiddly brass down here, which isn't very special, but it's just for layering. You would have heard that it sounded a bit clunky before. I'm not sure if it's going to sound any better now, but let's turn on my other brass as well that layers with it. Alright, I think you get the idea of that. Yeah, the other brass I've got is just a mixture. I think I use a bit of cine samples, a bit of, I've actually got a little bit of custom brass as well that I use, but the word custom has a lot of ooh about it, but it's really not that special. Alright, the final part has quite a bit of brass in it. Let's play that. Alright, not as much as I thought, but you get the idea. Percussion's not that special. I'm just using Spitfire Orchestral. And well, I think that's about it. A couple of little booms from Drums of War, which I really like. For it sits in a mix quite nicely. And I guess I could solo it for you, but it's really not special. The choir is just Storm Choir 1, which is my go-to choir. It's simple, it's low on resources, and it just sits behind an orchestra so well. I'll solo it. Again, it's probably not going to sound that great by itself, but inside the mix, it's just amazing. Well, in saying that, by the way, if you heard a little Facebook boop boop, I'm sorry. Yeah, in saying that did sound pretty good by itself. If you want to know how I wrote this track, I actually just did a little piano sketch of a main theme with simple little triad chords in the left hand. Very simple. And then I just started doing some variations on that theme just on the piano, and I've got the piano sketches up here. I don't think they're going to play because I think I unloaded the piano. But and you can see over here, this is like my brainstorming kind of session of all the different variations on the piano. And I'll be honest, I loved every single one of these variations, but none of them made it in here. One day if I get time, maybe I'll extend the piece and make it an 8-minute piece or something and use them all. But I just find that that's a great way to get me creative and going quite well. If you have any more questions, I'll be very happy to answer them. Just post them below in the comments, and I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can. But yeah, that's about it. I hope you enjoyed the video. It's been ages since the last one. So yeah, keep hassling me to do some more. Thanks guys. Catch up.